Great. We're live. We're live on StreamYard on YouTube. Well, we think we are. Let's check. This is the first time that I have been live on YouTube for approximately 2 years. I think we're talking about before COVID lockdown, actually. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check on the live stream whether I can actually share it. So it should be actually on the YouTube. Let's have a look and see if it's on my channel. Yeah, that's great. Good. Lovely. I'm just going to turn that off. And then I'm going to share it. And I'm going to share it on Telegram. Let's see if I can do that. And we're going to talk about anti-Semitism. But first of all, as this is a test, need to get the link. Oh, why didn't I put the link down? That would have been easier. Right. So let's stick that there. And we're going to just send it and see what happens. So this will be the first time that I've done something like this. Yeah, since 2020. So it's the first time we're talking about anti-Semitism. And the first time actually that my website is completely up. And everything is all in its place. So great. Better than Twitter Spaces, which keep fading when it comes to anti-Semitism. Right, there we go. Right, I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, some of the news today that I've been posting on, and this is not being recorded actually because I haven't upgraded the StreamYard, which is fine. But I want to talk about Candace Owens. I want to talk about Milo. I want to talk about Nick Fuentes. I want to talk about Kanye West. I want to talk about what's been going on in the last 6 months. I think there's been a complete shift around when it comes to what we thought, or what I thought personally, were people that were on our side. When I mean on our side, I don't mean on the Jewish people's side. I mean on our side politically speaking, on the right, on the conservative right, and people that were fighting for a Republican Party in America and a conservative government. And I want to talk a little bit about the interview yesterday, which was extremely interesting, with Kanye West and with Milo and with Nick Fuentes. And he was on the Tim Pool show. This is something that is extremely interesting to me because back in 2007 is the time where I started on Twitter. And prior to Twitter, in the mid-90s, you may remember there were platforms. You had Yahoo Chat, you had Talk. In fact, Talk was far, far superior to anything that had ever gone before. ICQ was the first chat. Then you had AOL Time Warner, which was bought by Time Warner. AOL Public Chat. You had Yahoo, which was ridden with madness. Then you had Talk, which was a political program. Talk used chat rooms like they're using now on Twitter. It's taking them 16 years virtually to have an idea and understanding on how you run political spaces. And Pal Talk, which is an American platform, were the first platform to have video, were the first platform to have political chat rooms, political groups, were the first platform to enable you to buy a blue or green nick, which meant that you had privileges, was the first platform to have political chat rooms. Oh, the madness in those chat rooms. And they were really interesting, actually, because when you look back, you can see that when Twitter began, everybody was so excited about Twitter. And they were excited because you could actually tweet 100 and something characters with no voice. And coming from somewhere where you had a voice, where you had monetization, where you had somebody, admins who could chuck you out the room if they didn't like your political speak, is unbelievable how in the last 5 months people are getting so angry that you have to pay to use Twitter, when it was one of the most normal things in the late 90s and early 2000s before Twitter came about. But I want to talk about Candace Owens. I want to talk about the beginnings of Twitter, because it really does include people like Milo. It includes people like Raheem Kassam. It includes people that Andrew Breitbart, and the people that were part of a revolutionary concept of conservative live feeds, conservative values, people that were pushing on Twitter, on a liberal, I would say, a liberal platform, to speak the truth. And these were people that came onto Twitter, and there was a whole group of us who were being dogpiled on because of our views, whether they were views for pro-Israel views, or they were pro-Republican views, or they were pro-conservative views. You didn't have the should I say, the lawyers, the police. You didn't have, people who understood Twitter at the beginning. You didn't have these people on there monitoring you, but you did get your account suspended time and time and time again. We had 150,000 followers around the first 2 to 3 years of Twitter. And we were constantly reported for having views that now seem absolutely normal. But when you were looking at, the live feeds that were coming through, when they started doing live feeds, and you seeing Andrew Breitbart and the staff going around to protest, being starting to be deplatformed, libel lawfare suits flying around Twitter. In fact, I have actually gone back into my diary and realized that myself and 3 or 4 other people, we were the first people to actually be hit with a libel threat by an organisation called Faith Matters and Tell Mama UK. We were the first people on Twitter to be hit with a so-called libel because we said something on Twitter. Now it's the norm. I mean, people are threatening others and taking them to court for libel and defamation, like it's a drop in the ocean. But at that particular time in 2000 or 2013, it started 2012, 2013, but on Twitter, 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, I remember speak to police officers who hadn't even heard what Twitter was. So we're talking about people that were on there right from the get-go. A lot of these people ended up going to the United States for one reason only, and that was because they realized many years ago that there was not free speech. And when I mean free speech, I mean they realized that Twitter was a liberal left-wing platform, that you couldn't openly speak about things that you wanted to speak about, that if you were conservative or you were pro-Zionist or you were supporting the Republican Party in America, or that you believed in, I would, you put it in inverted commas, but libertarian values, if you believed in standing up for those type of things, you could not do that under Jack's management at Twitter. And time again, my account was taken down. Not just my personal account, but my organisation account, which was slightly different than Iron Antisemitism. But that particular Iron Antisemitism came out of an organisation called Yad B'Yad UK, and we used to do live feeds through Spreaker on Twitter. And this is something, it's like I just feel like 15 years, 20 years, 25 years of the internet has, that we're going back. We're not actually moving forward when it comes to places like Twitter. Everyone thinking that Telegram is an amazing place because you've got freedom of speech. Everybody thinking that Facebook was fantastic when all you can talk about is your pets and your dog and what you've had for dinner. And there is no conversation, political conversation, because you're scared to actually get a suspension. So let's talk about Candace Owens, and let's talk about what she said today about Balenciaga. A lot of people don't know that Balenciaga and who Balenciaga, in fact, a lot of people never even heard of it, especially if you're not a fashionista. But I'd like somebody to, and I've put this actually on a website, somebody can nudge Candace Owens about anti-Semitism and her friend Kanye West. Now, my thoughts about this is that I knew Milo back in 2007, 2008. I particularly believe, and this is just my thoughts, is that I believe that Kanye West's anti-Semitic rants may have been instigated by his friendship with Louis Farrakhan, who I grew up, I'm 55, 56. I grew up knowing that he was an anti-Semite when I was a kid. That the Nation of Islam was one of the most vehement anti-Semitic organizations. So we're talking 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. But when we talk about Candace Owens coming out and standing side by side with Kanye West, with white Lives Matter sweatshirts, what has happened to Candace Owens? How is it that she is now aligning herself with Kanye West? How is she completely turned the tables? How is she now speaking on video to Kim Kardashian, who divorced Kanye West? How many months? Probably a year now. Is it more? More. How comes that she's now talking to her as a friend and saying, come out against Balenciaga because of the inverted commas child sexual exploitation of their advertising? And then not only doing that, but in the same breath talking about anti-Semitism, how she came out and spoke against Kanye West. No, she didn't. She didn't come out and talk about anti-Semitism until she was forced to do so. It was at least a couple of weeks before she came out and spoke out against Kanye West. And that was only because I believe that Trump's daughter actually had dinner with her and had probably said something, and her PR and her mother and her manager probably said, you better come out and say something. And that's why she did. It wasn't up to her to say something. She's no longer with Kanye West, but she did. And she came out and said something. And now Candace Owens is twinning that with what's happening with Balenciaga's advertising and the awful exploitation of children in some horrible vile photographs and advertising and things that are going on there. But to actually put that in a pleading video to Kanye West, to Kim Kardashian, and aligning the same thing, anti-Semitism and sexual exploitation of children, inverted commas, by apparently Balenciaga. Look, child porn is sick. Anti-Semitism is sick. But Candace Owens needs to understand that both are separate and both should be condemned separately. This is not one thing or another. This is separate. And what I find really interesting is that she's come out and she stood side by side with Kanye West. Now, they're talking about freedom of speech and deplatforming, and Kanye West can't even keep one flipping subject going. He goes from one to another, to another, to another, to another subject. He goes from the sky to the floor to so many subjects. His brain is going 100 miles an hour. And who does he blame for that? The Jews. Who does he blame for his mental health issues? The Jews. Who does he blame for, them putting him on or wanting to put him on lithium? The Jews. This is not the fact. The Jews didn't give him bipolar. The Jews didn't give him mental health issues. The Jews were treating him, or should I say, trying to treat him. There are many, many famous people in Hollywood with bipolar and mental health issues, PTSD, anxiety, depression, etc. One of the most famous women is Catherine Zeta-Jones. She has bipolar, and she came out very openly, possibly 8 to 10 years ago now, and talked about her bipolar episodes. Have you heard her stand and talk about, it's all because of the Jews, that she got bipolar or she was medicated by Jews? I can tell you one thing. Most of the people that I've seen in the medical profession recently have not been Jews. Gone to hospitals. My GPs are Hindus. In the A&E, they're Muslims. Who cares who they are? They're medics. They're the medical profession. It doesn't matter who is treating you, as long as they are treating you. When you go into casualty, do you actually have a look at somebody and say, well, that person is this and that person is that, so I'm not going to see them? In Israel, for example, most of the doctors and nurses in most of the hospitals are Arab. They're treating Jews. Do I not go to a hospital in Israel because an Arab is going to treat me? Of course not. When you go to A&E and you're waiting for 2 to 3 to 4 hours, you don't give up stuff who actually sees you. You just want a doctor to say you've got this, you've got that, taking a test, making sure that you get better. And this is what Kanye West is doing. And this is what Tim Pool tried to talk to him yesterday about. Now, I have a feeling that the anti-Semitism that Kanye West came out with would have been 4 weeks ago now. I believe, this is my personal belief, that this was planned. And this was planned because he wanted to announce that he wants to run for candidacy for the next presidential election. I believe that this was goaded, this was put in the public eye so that all the attention will go on to Kanye West, and that from that point then he would be able to talk about his candidacy, that he wants to run for presidential election. And so every single eye is on what he does and what he says. The interview yesterday with Tim Pool was absolutely amazing. I do not know how much patience Tim has, but I've seen his streams. He's an extremely balanced person. He's an extremely generous person, actually. And I have no problem him platforming Nick Fuentes, Milo, and Kanye West. In fact, it is really important that we hear what he said. And why? Why do we want to hear? Because we wanted to hear, or he wanted to hear, what Kanye West and why he went to Trump for dinner. And the story goes like this: he was invited, Kanye West, to the White House. I don't know when. He never said when. And he came with a few friends, which were Milo and Nick Fuentes. And apparently, Trump turned around to Kanye and said, he said, he said, I got my friends here. So we'll bring your friends in. He didn't know who his friends were. What the wrong thing to do, first of all. Number one is to invite Kanye West into the White House after that anti-Semitic rant. That's the first mistake. The second mistake was to say, come and bring your friends in. How do you know what your friends are, who your friends are? But coming aside a bit from Trump inviting Kanye to the White House, we go back to the interview and we go back to Candace Owens. In fact, when Kanye West came out with the rant, the anti-Semitic rant, Candace Owens was like pretty supportive. Again, she put her friend Kanye first. And it seems to me that Turning Point UK, which is or was a really, really good organization that went into campuses in America, along with Kirk, and went into campuses and argued or had a debate with students. Ask us anything, we'll give you the answers. That was something that was really, really important to do, because we know that people were getting cancelled. Those live debates before the COVID lockdown were absolutely important, and Turning Point became a really good organization. And then we had Turning Point UK. But unfortunately, Candice has now gone down that rabbit hole. The rabbit hole where people talk about or want to talk about the Jewish question, which I'm going to do a live stream about the Jewish question. I wanted to start off and see whether everything worked on this YouTube, but this is now going to be a regular spot. I'm going to do this every evening. We're going to talk about, as much as I can, we're going to talk about the Jewish question. We're going to talk about the Rothschilds. We're going to talk about every single conspiracy theory, and I am going to debunk it. And I'm going to ask anyone who wants to ask me a question about anti-Semitism, about these conspiracy theories. I'm going to debunk them. And I'm not sure if people are going to want to debate me, because I'll be able to bring you the facts. See, facts don't lie, but conspiracies do. And I'm going to be able to do that. So for the next, I would say, we're probably going to start on today's Tuesday. So probably going to start tomorrow, Thursday. And we're going to start, and I'm going to start to advertise this on the website, on Telegram, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you have any questions, I'm going to have a debate with you on this. But as I said, I believe that this Kanye West outpouring of anti-Semitism was either a Farrakhan inspired plot, telling him that he can speak about anything, or it was to shine a light on Kanye West because he'd gone pretty much underground after his divorce from Kardashian. And I think that it might have been a spotlight on him to talk about his intended presidential election candidacy. And that's all I've got to say tonight. So I'm going to end the broadcast there. Looks like everything's working properly. It's like YouTube, I've set up my live stream now so I can live stream, which is great. And we're going to have some debates.